All right, so let's go this way. All right, so let's talk about Genesis 2:16-25. So the Lord commanded the man, saying, "You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil shall not eat, for in the day you eat of it, you shall surely die." We understand that what the Garden of Eden represents, and we understand the significance of the choice between the two trees. So let's talk a little bit more about the story. So we have a cosmic temple. Man is put in his most holy place to dwell with God and serve as his image or cult statue or idol. And God gives mankind one instruction. He says, "Fear me, rely on me for the wisdom to serve in this place. Don't take it into your own hands to determine what is good and evil. Rely on me or you'll die." Well, how are they going to die? Some people say they're never dead immediately. Well, I think how they die is they get separated from the life of God. And eventually they die physically because they've been separated. So it's a spiritual death first. Then the Lord God said, "It's not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." So when God creates a world, at 7 points, he says, God saw what he made, and God said it's good. And then he makes humans, and he says it's very good. But right here, God says, this is the first time God says it's not good. It's not good that the man should be alone. And I think the point is that even though God is there with him, it's not good when we do not have a relationship with others. Someone will say, "I gotta live my Christian life by myself. I don't need nobody." It's not good. I have God. Yes, you have God, but you need people. But it's also telling us that men need women, and women need men. It's not good for us, and there have been many times I've been a part of groups where men try to do things without God, without woman, and it doesn't go well. We need each other. So what does helper mean? The Lord said it's not good for the man to be alone. I'll make him a helper suitable. That word helper is ezer, and the word suitable is kenegdo. Now, sometimes we can read that and think helper means somebody less than. But that's not what it means. Moving again. Thank you, Darren. That word ezer is used in context in other places in the Bible to refer to God. So God is often called or ezer. And so really what it does is it connotes someone who's able to do something for us that we cannot do for ourselves, and it doesn't carry the sense of being less than. One writer says, any suggestion that this particular word denotes one who has only an associate or subordinate status to a senior member is refuted by the fact that most frequently this word describes Yahweh's relationship to Israel. He's Israel's ezer because he is the stronger one. Now, so that word really, it means someone who helps us in a way that we cannot help ourselves. And the verb behind ezer is azar, which means to succor or save from danger, or deliver from death. And so the woman in Genesis 2 delivers or saves the man from his solitude. And that word kenegdo is made up of a preposition like, which means as or according to, joined to neged, which means that which is opposite or corresponds. So Desmond Alexander says, helper is one who supplies strength in the area that is lacking in the helped. The term does not imply that the helper is either stronger or weaker than the one helped. Fit for him or matching him, the footnote says corresponding to, is not the same as like him. A wife is not her husband's clone, but complements him. And so the NET, I think, is a better translation when it says it's not good for the man to be alone. I'll make a companion for him. One person suggested a better word than companion is an ally. And he's making someone who corresponds to him. You know the idea of yin and yang? Yeah? The idea is you have these two things that are different from each other, but they fit together. That's what it means to correspond. It means complementarity, not similarity. So men are different from women. You notice that, right? My kids, when my daughter was born, we could put her in front of the television. We get 30 minutes with her watching Barney. My son Chase comes along, and we put him in front of Barney. He's off the high chair. He's growing. He goes over here. He touches this. He looks at Barney. He comes over here. He touches it. And we realize very, very quickly, oh, he's different. He's got to be mobile all the time. And so we literally had to move house because we didn't have enough space for him. He was just ambulatory. My wife and I are very different. I tend to be very focused on one thing, and I like order and everything in its place, and I try to be very logical. My wife, she's like, I love everybody. Everybody come over to the house. I don't know how I'm going to feed you all, but come anyway. Now, we're very good for each other. Now, that creates some challenges at first. It took me about a decade to figure out some of these stuff. But now I relish the differences. So our kids, when they're sick, they come in the bedroom. My bed I sleep on this side of the bed. We have one bed. The kids come in, they pass me, and they go to her, Mommy, so she said, let me do a kiss that for you. And I say, okay, I guess I have no use. But you know, there are certain times when if they have a problem, they're not going to her because they're going to get some emotion. And for some reason, I can step back and be dispassionate and listen, and that's how I'm wired. We need both of us. And not just in marriage, in the church and in the world. And this is the idea of what God has created. Well, the Lord God formed out of the ground every living animal of the field and every bird of the air. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man named all the animals, the birds of the air, the living creatures of the field. But for Adam, no companion was found who corresponded to him. And so we have some suspense building here. God says, you know what? It's not good for you to be alone. I'm going to let you name some animals. And what God is doing is he's allowing the man to see that he has a need. And he sees all the animals, and he sees the two birds and the two lambs, and he says, well, everybody have a friend. And no friend for me. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into deep sleep. And that word is the same word that when God puts people into a trance, like Abraham in Genesis, where he falls into deep sleep, and he has this vision of God walking through the animals and so on. So I think this is not anesthesia. That's how we tend to think of it. God put him under with some anesthetic in order to do operation. This is not surgery. I think this is vision. And while he was asleep, he took part of the man's side and closed up the place with flesh. And the Lord made a woman from the part he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. We come to your question now, Marlene. This word here, side, in most translations is translated rib. But that word is selah, and it refers to the side of things, like the side of the ark, or the side of the building, or the side of a mountain. And so what it is saying is not that God took a part out of her, out of Adam. It's saying that God made her from his side. And the basic idea is that she's equal to him. He doesn't take her from his head, nor does he take her from his feet. She is beside him. And there's a quote from Matthew Henry, which is well worth reading. He says, not made out of his head to top him, not out of his feet to be trampled upon by him, but out of his side to be equal with him, under his arm to be protected, and near his heart to be beloved. I think that is well said. Then the man, he gets excited. He says, this at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. We say flesh and blood, they say bones and flesh. And the fact that he's talking about bones and flesh tells us that we're not talking about a rib, but a whole, really half of him, a side of him. And she shall become woman because she was taken out of man. The Hebrew word is isha for woman, and for man it's ish. But he recognizes something, that she is a part of him. She really is just him that God has made, taken from him to make someone else. So really, he and her are one. And so it goes on to say, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. And the idea here is, this is very different than what happened in their cultural context, because the husband never left his parents. What happened is that the wife left her family and came to be with the man and his family. But what it's trying to establish is that what we have is a new covenantal relationship, which is higher than the relationship that a man would have with his parents. So even though they're in the same household, there is a priority to his relationship with his wife. And really, when he says they're bones and flesh, they are becoming one person. So that in marriage, you have a relationship that regardless of what happens, it is going to continue. And that's why divorce is such a painful thing. And you see people who are divorced, and they really can't unentangle themselves, because the nature of you getting married with someone is you're becoming one with them. But I think the real point that the biblical authors are making is that marriage is a reflection of the fact that men and women are one. They come from one, and really they are to relate to each other with a sense of unity. And so I think the NET translation puts it well. That's why a man leaves his father and mother and unites with his wife, and they become a new family. The man and his wife were both naked, but they were unashamed. So here at the end of Genesis 2, we have a picture of humankind in perfect harmony with each other and dwelling with God in heaven and earth, which is Eden. And they're set to extend God's heavenly kingdom over the rest of the earth, thereby bringing life and order to all of it. What could possibly go wrong?